Question 61. Truth and non-violence as the pillars of Satyagraha. Introduction. The spirit of Satyagraha, the concept of Satyagraha developed and practiced by Mahatma Gandhi, is one of the most profound moral and political philosophies in the modern human thought. Derived from the Sanskrit words Satya, that is truth, and Agraha, that is firmness or insistence. Satyagraha means holding firmly to truth or the force born of truth and love. For Gandhi, Satyagraha was not merely a technique of protest or political struggle, but a way of life and moral discipline, rooted deeply in truth, Satya, and non-violence, Ahimsa, the two cardinal pillars that sustain its ethical and spiritual foundation. He called them the two sides of the same coin, inseparable and interdependent, forming the soul of his philosophy of action. 1. Meaning of Satyagraha. Satyagraha literally means the pursuit of truth through non-violent resistance. Gandhi used this term for the first time during the South African struggle 1906 against racial injustice, rejecting the term passive resistance, which implied weakness or submission. For him, Satyagraha was active moral resistance to evil, not by hatred or force, but by love, suffering, and self-discipline. It aimed not to destroy the opponent, but to transform his heart and conscience. Thus, Satyagraha is both a moral philosophy and a method of social change, whose foundation rests firmly on truth and non-violence. Second, truth, Satya, the moral foundation of Satyagraha. Truth, according to Gandhi, is the supreme principle of existence, the ultimate reality of the universe. He wrote in Young India in 1926, "Truth is God, and there is no higher religion than truth." For Gandhi, truth was not merely intellectual or factual correctness, it was ethical and spiritual integrity, a harmony between thought, word, and deed. In Satyagraha, truth has both philosophical and practical meanings. 1. Philosophical meaning. Truth is the eternal absolute reality. To seek truth is to seek God. Satyagraha is the process of realizing truth through moral self-purification. 2. Practical meaning. In daily life and political struggle, truth means honesty, sincerity, and openness in thought and action. A Satyagrahi must speak truth, act truthfully, and stand by truth, even at the cost of personal suffering. For example, during the freedom struggle, Gandhi insisted that Satyagrahis must confess their own mistakes, maintain transparency, and avoid falsehood even when facing injustice. Thus, truth in Satyagraha is both the goal, the ultimate reality, and the means, honest conduct in pursuing it. Third, non-violence and ahimsa, the practical expression of Satyagraha. If truth is the goal of Satyagraha, non-violence, that is ahimsa, is the means to attain it. Ahimsa, in Gandhi's understanding, goes beyond the mere absence of physical violence. It signifies complete love, compassion, and goodwill toward all living beings. It is not weakness or cowardice, but the highest form of courage, because it demands self-restraint, forgiveness, and suffering instead of retaliation. Gandhi described non-violence as not a weapon of the weak, but of the strong. To practice ahimsa, one must conquer hatred, anger, and selfishness. It requires purity of heart and the willingness to endure suffering for the sake of truth. Example: when Gandhi and his followers faced brutal repression during movements like the Salt March in 1930 or the Quit India movement in 1942, they did not retaliate with violence. Their moral endurance converted political protest into spiritual struggle for justice. Thus, non-violence in Satyagraha is not passive resistance but active moral power, soul force that seeks to win over the opponent through love and suffering, not to destroy him. Fourth, relationship between truth and non-violence. Gandhi saw truth and non-violence as inseparable and mutually dependent. He often said, truth is the end, non-violence is the means. The two form an organic unity. Non-violence is the practical path through which truth is realized, and truth gives meaning and direction to non-violence. Without truth, non-violence becomes mere passivity or compromise. Without non-violence, truth becomes oppressive and intolerant. Just as a tree and its fragrance cannot be separated, Gandhi believed that truth and non-violence are two aspects of the same reality. For example, in his campaigns, Gandhi refused to tell lies or use force even against an unjust government. His moral consistency gave Satyagraha its power and legitimacy. Fifth, practical application of truth and non-violence in Satyagraha. The Gandhian method of Satyagraha applies truth and non-violence through several practices. First, civil disobedience, refusal to obey unjust laws not through violence but through peaceful non-cooperation, accepting punishment willingly. Example, Gandhi's salt satyagraha in 1930 challenged the British monopoly on salt through peaceful defiance, proving that moral force could challenge political might. Second, non-cooperation, withdrawal of cooperation from unjust authorities, moral, social and economic, without hatred or harm. Third, fasting and self-suffering, suffering willingly to appeal to the conscience of the wrongdoers. Gandhi believed that self-suffering is the highest form of action. Fourth, constructive program, building positive alternatives based on truth and non-violence, such as village industries, education, sanitation and communal harmony. In each of these, truth provides the purpose and non-violence provides the method. Sixth, philosophical depth, the moral power of truth and non-violence. Gandhi's faith in these principles was rooted in the conviction that moral power, soul force, is stronger than physical power. He believed that all life is one and interdependent, hence violence against another is violence against oneself. Through truth and non-violence, Satyagraha seeks not to conquer the body but the mind and heart of the adversary. Its ultimate aim is not to defeat the opponent but to convert him, achieving reconciliation rather than revenge. Seventh, examples of Satyagraha based on truth and non-violence. 1. South African struggle 1906 till 1914. Gandhi's first experiment with Satyagraha was against racial discrimination. His insistence on truth and non-violence won concessions from the South African government and moral admiration worldwide. Second, non-cooperation movement from 1920 to 1922. Gandhi urged Indians to boycott British institutions peacefully. Though the movement ended after the Chauri Chaura incident where violence occurred, it showed the power of collective non-violent action. Third, Salt March of 1930. One of the most successful applications of Satyagraha. By breaking the salt law peacefully, Gandhi demonstrated that moral courage can dismantle oppressive power. In all these movements, truth and non-violence transformed political action into a moral awakening. Eighth, significance and legacy. The pillars of truth and non-violence made Satyagraha a universal doctrine transcending politics religion, and geography. It inspired Martin Luther King Jr. in American civil rights movement. It influenced Nelson Mandela in South Africa's anti-apartheid struggle. It continues to guide movements for peace, justice, and human rights worldwide. For Gandhi, the success of Satyagraha lay not in the victory of one party over another, but in the awakening of conscience or reconciliation through moral power. Ninth, criticisms and limitations. While Satyagraha's moral strength is widely admired, critics argue that it may not work against extremely violent or unyielding regimes. It assumes a moral conscience in the oppressor which may not exist. It demands great self-discipline and courage which ordinary individuals may lack. However, even critics acknowledge that its ethical appeal and spiritual depth make it a powerful instrument of peaceful resistance. Summary for quick understanding. Truth and non-violence are the twin pillars of Satyagraha. Gandhi's philosophy of non-violent resistance. Truth, Satya, represents the goal, the pursuit of moral and spiritual reality, while non-violence, ahimsa, is the means, the practice of love and compassion toward all. Together they create a powerful force of moral action that seeks to transform injustice through conscience, not coercion. Quick revision notes. Truth or Satya is a moral and spiritual reality, the goal of life and Satyagraha. Non-violence, ahimsa, that is love, compassion and refusal to harm, the means to attain the truth. Relationship between the truth and non-violence. Truth is the end, non-violence is the means. Essence: conquer hatred with love, falsehood with truth. Examples: Salt Satyagraha, non-cooperation movement, South African struggle. Legacy: inspired global leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and Nelson Mandela. Criticism: demands high moral strength, difficult under tyranny. One-line question and answers for revision. What does Satyagraha mean? Firm adherence to truth through non-violence. What are its two pillars? Truth, that is Satya, and non-violence, that is ahimsa. Who developed the concept of Satyagraha? Mahatma Gandhi. Fourth, what is the relation between truth and non-violence? Truth is the end, non-violence is the means. Fifth, what does truth mean in Satyagraha? Moral integrity and spiritual realization. Sixth, what does non-violence mean? Love and refusal to harm in thought, word and deed. Seventh, where did Gandhi first apply Satyagraha? In South Africa in 1906. Eighth, name one movement based on Satyagraha. The Salt March 1930. Ninth, what is the ultimate aim of Satyagraha? Conversion of the oppressor through moral persuasion. 10th, what is Gandhi's famous statement linking the two? Truth is God, non-violence is the means to realize Him. Final connection. Truth and non-violence form the ethical nucleus of Gandhi's Satyagraha, the sole force that transforms politics into moral action. Truth gives Satyagraha its purpose. Non-violence gives its power. Together they make it a path of courage, love and spiritual awakening. In Gandhi's own words, without truth there is no non-violence. Without non-violence there is no truth. They are as inseparable as two sides of a coin. Thank you very much for listening.